Got the wrong Pirkei Avot, should be. Right. So we are continuing in Pirkei Avot, Pirkei Avos, Ethics of the Fathers. We did already a couple of Mishnahs. We're going to continue in our discussion. We're here on Zoom, we're here on Clubhouse, we're here on Facebook. So we've got a lot of people to engage with, and we're looking forward to the engagement. So we are in the first chapter, third Mishnah. Oh, before I forget, this class is being sponsored by David and Hanalea, and so they're actually not even here right now. Okay, look at that. I think it ties in with what we're going to speak about. So we're in the third Mishnah. We're not going to go over what we learned previously. No, we're going to go straight into the third teachings. Antignos ish Sukkoi Kibel Mishimon Atzadik. Antignos is his name. He was a leader in a place called Socho, which was in the area of Yehuda, the area of the territory of Judah. You know, all of Israel had different areas based on the 12 tribes, and that's where he was a leader. He received from the previous teacher, which was Shimon Shimon the Righteous. He used to say, do not be like a servant that serves on the condition to receive a reward. However, you should be like a servant who serves the master, not on the condition to receive reward. The fear of heaven should be upon you. The awe of heaven should be upon you. So those are the words. Let's go into this at great length. So what is he saying here? Don't serve God in order to receive a reward. Don't do a mitzvah in order to be rewarded. Do you see any difficulty with this? Does anybody have a challenge with this? Anybody have an issue with this statement? No? Dan?
I have a question, Rabbi.
Go ahead.
When it comes to giving, I guess charity, is that a place where you're allowed to ask God to reciprocate?
Ooh.
When I say charity, I'm talking about like donations.
Yes. Excellent question. So let me respond to that. We see clearly in the Talmud, in Gemara, Rosh Hashanah, it says there that a person can say, I'm going to give this coin for charity in order that my child should be healed. So we see very clearly an instance where there is a concept of giving, doing a mitzvah in order to receive a reward. Seems to be contrary to what we just said. But I want to have even a better place than the Talmud that we just had. We say twice a day in the Shema, the second paragraph. What does it say very clearly? Anybody? What does it say in the Shema? That if you're going to do the mitzvahs and you're going to get rain in its time, you're going to have a produce, you're going to, you'll have everything that you need. And if you don't do the mitzvahs, then there's a repercussion. That's a negative repercussion. So very clearly, the concept of reward and punishment exists. And there's even it's not even implied. It's very clear that, there is such a concept. So is that contrary to what we just learned over here? Dan, do you have something to share with this?
But is the concept only, relevant to healing, or, because there's this, from my understanding, right? Because you give 10% of your salary,
Right.
by Jewish law, and the whole concept, I guess, what I always like that if you give, then you'll be, you'll kind of reap the benefits of that per se.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So then if you're going to reap the benefits, then how does this statement make sense? What is this statement saying then? Sorry to challenge you on a Thursday afternoon to make you think. Well, I'm happy to make you think, but to challenge you, we have. So Dan, what is this statement saying over here?
I'm honestly, I'm not sure.
Okay. Thank you for the honesty. I appreciate that. Let me go a step further. Antignos had two amazing students. One's name was Bisis, and the other's name was Tzaddik. They heard this statement. They went wild. What do you mean? Is it possible that someone works and doesn't get rewarded for their work, doesn't get payment for what they do? What do you mean not to receive reward? What does that mean exactly? How could you demand that from people? You know what happened to those two people? They became the leaders of a sect called the Sadducees and the Tzaddukim, who veered off from Judaism. They only accepted the written word and not the oral Torah. Because here's their leader, Antignos, who is coming and bringing a teaching to them and saying that, hey, don't serve God for reward. So they didn't understand how this fits in, what we read in the Shema, what this fits in with the way of the world. The way of the world is you put in an effort, there's some reward that you come from that effort. So what's the answer? The answer is Maimonides. Maimonides, Rambam gives us an answer. And he says the following. And not just Rambam, the Maharal from Prague and many others come and explain. There's no doubt that there's a concept of reward and punishment. And there's no doubt that there is, for the good that you do, you should be able to actually perceive the reward that you get, both materially and spiritually. Absolutely. And yet, well, no, not yet. The Rambam actually says when you start a child to engage them in teaching Torah, in inspiring them in leading a proper Jewish life, you should entice them. How do you entice them? With childlike things. So he gives an example of they do well, they learn the Mishnah, like this Mishnah, and they know it and they learn it well. Give them a nut, give them some figs, right? Healthy food back in the day, right? Not a can of soda or, some sweet thing. That was back in the day. Today might be a little different. Then he says, when the child grows older, right? This is a young child. Then you've got to entice them to study Torah, to do good, to do acts of loving kindness, and also to entice them. If they'll do something, they'll get, they'll get new clothing, they'll get something as a reward. When they mature further, then they're promised money, prestige. But eventually, Maimonides says, and this is all about growing and maturing, that a person should outgrow all of this. And why should you serve God then? Why should you do Not that you're not getting a reward, because it doesn't say here you don't get a reward. It says your intent should not be for the sake of the reward that you're going to get. Then what the Rambam says, Maimonides says, is interesting. You should serve God because it's the truth. God is the truth. The teachings are the truth. And therefore you should serve God because it is the truth. Period. This is what he says. Just like Abraham did and our ancestors did, they served out of love, they served out of awe. So likewise, we should come to a point. So then why is the Torah telling us about reward and punishment? Why should it tell us about reward and punishment? What's the point of reward and punishment then? Anybody? Anybody have a thought on that? Clubhouse? Zoom? Facebook?
Might be considered more like a consequences than the original motivators for the behavior.
Okay, very good. What else? Any other thoughts on very good? Any other thoughts?
To motivate people.
Well, we all start off immature. We all start off very self-absorbed. By the way, did anybody ever see or hear a baby that came into this world and was crying not because maybe the bright lights were too bright for them, or maybe they were hungry, or they just got kind of startled because they were in a comfort zone in utero and now they were taken out, from there. Did they cry because there was someone else who didn't have food? No, they only cried because they didn't have food. What happens when the child's 5 years old? You tell them, you should share your toys. Why do you tell them that they should share their toys? Because it's the truth to share your toys? No, they're too young for that, too immature. You tell them that 5 years old, it's nice to share. And if you won't share, others won't share with you. So what's the motivation there? That others should share with you. Then you grow older, and then finally you can come to the truth. You know why you share? Because it's the appropriate and proper thing to do. It's the truth. I was given this, not just for my own benefit, but I could share it with another. And to live that truth is something you have to evolve to. So Torah speaks about reward and punishment for two reasons. One is we need to evolve beyond that, right? We need to evolve beyond it. But it needs to incorporate that even if you do it for reward and punishment, it's still better doing that than not, obviously. And that's why for the little child, you don't raise a child that you should do good for goodness sake, for God's sake, for the truth. They can't live the truth. They're immature to live that truth. They need to, they're self-directed. You could try to start training them with that, but they need to see the personal benefit. And the second reason is because, in fact, there is personal benefit by doing good. So there is a reward when you do a mitzvah, when you do an act of loving kindness to another. It will bear a consequence that is positive. And likewise, the opposite, that if we do something that we shouldn't do, it will have its negative consequence. So there's a truth to it. Ultimately, we need to grow out of that and not be motivated by it, but at the same time, recognize that there is indeed such a consequence and such a fact. Does that resonate? Folks on Clubhouse, resonates? Folks on Zoom, it resonates? Yeah? Anybody have a question on that? Or an issue or a challenge with it? Let's go a step further. So what are we saying over here? We're saying that you have to evolve, right? You have to evolve to the truth. Because we're born into this world, and by our nature of the animal soul, right, that even a child is very cute, But animal soul doesn't mean that they're not cute, right? Animal soul doesn't mean a child's not cute. What it just means is a child is self-directed, right? They're selfish. And it can be in a very cute selfishness, but they only see the world in their terms about them. And even the act of loving kindness is maybe just a very instinctual one, but not something that is recognizing there's a truth or a transcendence beyond themselves. They don't have the capacity yet to do that. They evolve into that. You grow into that. But there's an interesting statement in the Talmud that says that a person should always occupy themselves in Torah and mitzvahs. We actually had it recently in Tanya teachings. Should always occupy yourself in Torah and mitzvahs, right? And not doing it for the right reason, right? You're motivated for self-interest. So you're on this lower level, but from eventually you will come from not the right reason, you'll come to do it for the right reason. So, in other words, do the mitzvah even if you don't have the right intent. But remember, Pirkei Avot, the Jewish ethics that we're talking about over here, are unique teachings. They're not about the letter of the law. They're about beyond the letter of the law. So the letter of the law, you could give charity that my child should live. You could give charity that my child is not healthy and I'm giving it that my child should. That's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong by doing that. That's what motivates me to give this charity. So my child isn't well and I'm giving this, so my child should be well. As a matter of fact, it's actually, there's something very beautiful about it. What is that? What's so beautiful about that? That you give charity when your child isn't well. Anybody? What's beautiful about that? Well, what's beautiful, one thing that's beautiful is you're giving charity. That's beautiful. The act of giving is beautiful, right? Secondly is that you recognize that the physical reality of your child can be altered in a better state of being, of health, through an act of a mitzvah, of being charitable. That's amazing, an awareness. That's beautiful that we should recognize that. Yet, there's an ulterior motive there in the act of the mitzvah. That's righteous. Is that beyond the letter of the law? It's not beyond the letter of the law, but that's okay. Sometimes you need to do the letter of the law, right? So now, you know what would be beyond the letter of the law? That if you gave charity for someone else, someone else that isn't healthy, that isn't well, and you gave the charity for theirs, oh, then that's beyond the letter of the law. That is selfless for that child. You know, there's a beautiful story. I don't know if you're familiar with the Rav Zusha from Manipur. Rav Zusha from Manipur, he actually wrote an approbation for the Tanya. He was a contemporary of the Alter Rebbe, lived 200 years ago. And you have to understand, 200 years ago, righteous people, and some of them, like he was at one point like one of the hidden righteous people, they would go off and on journeys that would take some time for self-discovery, self-discovery. What self-discovery? They knew who they were, but I guess deeper. Well, as the story would tell. So he came back from a journey, and he heard in town he had a son by the name of Meir, and someone came to him and said to him that your son Meir isn't well. He needs healing. God should bless him. So he comes into town and he feels terrible. He hears this news about his son. He said, well, he comes home, asks his wife, what's going on with our son Meir? He's not well? He says, no, Meir's perfectly well. I heard that Meir's not well. No, that's not our Meir. That's the cobbler's Meir. His son isn't well. So he took a big sigh of, oh. Then he caught himself. He said, oh my gosh, I'm relieved because my son Meir is okay, but the cobbler's son, his son isn't okay, and I was relieved. What did my journey help? What did it help? That I am not concerned for my, my son, the cobbler's son, that his son isn't well, and I was relieved that my son is okay. Obviously, the journey did not really bear the fruit that it should have. Now, that is beyond the letter of the law, that you should be able to see another child is not well as your child, right? And you'll be and give for them, right? Now, your own child, you got to give first and take care of first because you have the duty and the obligation. But to feel that connection to another and their illness and to be able to give to them for their needs, that's already beyond the letter of the law, right? The letter of the law is, yes, I can give for another. That would already be something else. That would be something actually quite amazing, quite something. So the Talmud tells us, our sages in the Talmud tell us that we should always engage in Torah mitzvahs, even if it's not for the right reason, motivated for selfish reasons, because ultimately we'll come to do it for the right reason. Why? Why will we come to do it for the right reason? As we said, we evolve. When we engage in serving God, ultimately, even though there's selfish attitudes that we have, because that's the human condition. We're born selfish. The human condition is selfish. To evolve beyond that is effort, is divine service. It takes, working on ourselves. The Rebbe actually introduces something very interesting, though. Why will we evolve? How come? Is it just maturity? Is it just because we'll grow? Why do we grow? You know why? So he plays on the words of our sages. So precise are the words of the sages. And what do they say? Mitoich lo lishma ba lishma. That's the Hebrew. Mitoich means from within the depth of not the right reason, you'll come to the right reason. So the Rebbe explains that in the depth of the wrong reason, you know what is there? The right reason. The selfless reason. In our selfish ways, we need to know, if we dig down deep, we'll actually find the altruistic, non-selfish part of me. It's not that I will just evolve to become it. I got it now. It's there within me today. I just have to dig deep and I can find it. That's why with even a child, therefore, you can speak to them about non-selfish ways, even though they're childish. Why? Because deep down in that soul, it's there. And what you're doing is just bringing it to their awareness that ultimately when they become of age and they can own their own Judaism, start to own their own Judaism. A girl at 12, bat mitzvah, a boy at 13, a bar mitzvah, when they can start owning their own connection and relationship to God and responsibilities, then you've planted that notion that now they can take it and truly evolve. Why can they evolve? Because it's the true nature of the soul. They just need to come in tune with it, in contact with it. And we all have it. It's all within us. Imagine, you sometimes see, and it's hard, by the way, sometimes you see someone that's really like, they're a narcissist. They're a narcissist. It's always about them. It's always about them. And it's so easy to get lost and only see that in them. What we need to rise ourselves to is to recognize as a mitoich. Mitoich means from within. It might be very deep, but it's there. And if we are capable, we'll be able to actually help them to recognize it ultimately. Ultimately, we'll help them to recognize that. Any questions or comments on that? Any thoughts? Anybody? Martin, Susie, Chloe, or Chloe. Chloe, actually, I think. No. Oh my, I'm terrible with the names. Help me. And George. That was an easier one. Martin.
Everyone, my name is Martin, and I believe in Jewish ethics. I'm not Jewish, but I believe this beautiful history, this culture, this amazing culture. I'm a person who always, in my culture, I'm Assyrian from Middle East, and in my culture, we should respect past. We should respect what we had before. We accept the technology, but we don't ignore the past. And it's beautiful when we see that in Jewish culture, the language is saved. It's beautiful that we see that, unfortunately, a lot of languages from that era, unfortunately, they're dead, but Hebrew is alive. And it's beautiful. And living modern and being involved with technology doesn't mean that we should ignore culture or past. Myself, I'm not a very religious person, but every single thing from 1,000 years ago and past is just fascinating. I enjoy reading Bible, and I love the history. And I speak Aramaic a little bit. My language is Neo-Aramaic. And Hebrew, learning Hebrew helps me to learn my mother language. Because the thing that, unfortunately, first of all, this is amazing club and room. I wish there were more than 3 people. And I'm trying to ping friends. And I don't think Clubhouse is very useful. But this is amazing, and thank you, Ronnie, for this amazing topic. I was listening, and I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Wow, beautiful.
Yes, I'm done talking. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. That was a beautiful sentiment to share. Wow. Yes. We have a beautiful 33, over 4,000 years tradition, and it's beautiful when people appreciate it and engage in it. And thank you for sharing that with us. That was very nice, beautiful. Okay. Anybody else to share before we continue with another thought or continue on this thought? Vilma, thank you for joining.
It's good to be here.
Mm-hmm. So, let's continue with this thought over here. So, just to reset the room over here for new people just came in. I think I just pinged, so people came in. Please join us. We're learning from Pirkei Avot for the Jewish ethics that a person should not be as a servant to serve the master in order to receive reward, rather be like a servant who serves the master not in order to receive a reward, and let the awe of heaven be upon the individual. So actually, I want to get to something a little more basic. It says here, be a servant. Is everybody comfortable with that? Is that a notion, that I think in Western civilization, not so, be a servant, like being a slave, that's what it almost is, has a implication. Is that a notion that people have a difficulty with? No? Diane doesn't have a difficulty. So a statement, a thought that I've mentioned previously is there's either 2 things in life: to serve or to be served. the immature notion is that I want to be served. Now, serve doesn't mean, you're my servant and, my slave and do as I tell you. Serve can just simply mean I relate to you, I connect to you in a way that serves me well. I have a benefit from you. My relationship to you is about the benefit that I have from you. The moment I don't get the benefits that I need from you, then the closeness will not be close anymore. You'll move to the periphery, if not completely off my map. Because what is my need of you is of you, how you meet the things that I want from you. The moment I don't have those things from you, I'm not interested in you, or less interested at least, right? Obviously, that's not so healthy. Obviously, that's not so good. But we have to be honest with ourselves. That's everything about modern day society. That's everything about the modern day society. That doesn't mean you're mean to another person. It doesn't mean you're disrespectful to another person at all. You can be completely respectful. But since you're not serving my interest, I'm not interested in you. I'm respectful, right? Unfortunately, when it comes to the political arena, it's much worse in the political arena. Only if you serve my political interests do you have any value. Identity politics that is destroying America, destroying not just America, by the way, but they're the first ones who I think will go because of it. But the rest of Western culture, similar, not as bad here as in Canada and in other places, but it's also a problem. Why is it? What's the root of it? Is this statement over here? I'm here to serve, not to be served. So if you don't serve my interests, I lose interest in you. Or what's going on today, if you're the opposite of my interests, I dislike you. I'll cancel you. That's what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going on today. Everybody understands that. That's why this statement here is so crucial. The implied statement before the higher level statement, we're here to serve. Ultimately, altruistically, with the intent of not having a reward, not having a benefit. Why? Because to serve God and to do what's right, because it's right. It's the truth. Serve the truth because it's the truth. Serve God because it's the truth. Do a mitzvah because it's the truth. Again, not to say that there isn't a gain, there isn't a benefit, there isn't value that you're going to gain from it, and you're going to be better and evolved and so on. Talking, though, about what's your intent. That is the notion over here, the mindfulness that we're talking about. Susie, or am I pronouncing that right? Susie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because I see two S's. Please share with us. You're a bit unclear.
Yeah.
Ooh la la. Can you get a better connection? Oh, that sounds a little better.
Is that better?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, like, thank you for everything that you shared. I'm listening. I'm working in the meantime, so I can't always respond. It's frustrating with Clubhouse. Like, you're listening and, like, you want to answer, but you're, like, in a conversation but listening to a podcast at the same time.
Definitely a challenge.
Yes. I find a lot of value in that, in the way that I make sense of it. For me, this whole serving plus feeling empowered at the same time, because I like the Western belief about it and how that relates to it, and why we live in a disposable environment, and a disposable culture. But for me, I wonder if it's about it's not a contradiction. Like, we're serving because our connection with Hashem is a lot bigger than our human understands. So it's like we're like the bottle of water compared to the ocean. And so we're all going to the same space, if that makes sense. Meaning it's not a contradiction to, we're partners technically as well with Hashem,
right?
But we're just not all knowing, and that's kind of how I see the serving. If that makes any sense, I don't know if that.
No. Yes, I get what you're saying. So, let me ask: in partners, let's take the example of a relationship between husband and wife, partners in life, right?
Right.
So your devotion, ultimately, is it because of the gain that you have in the partnership? Hopefully not.
Right.
Ultimately,
Where...
you're devoted to your spouse for one reason. Ultimately, because it's my spouse. Because we're two halves of one soul that are bound together as one, and therefore, period, because you're my spouse. Now, that being said, there's other levels of the relationship, but the essential bond that there is makes it altruistic than the commitment. Does that make sense?
Right, very much, yes. Yeah, I like that, and it's why people will stay together sometimes, even if everything, like, because they have a spiritual bond, and then there's no physical. I wonder if people stay in relationships sometimes because of that, when there's nothing else going for it besides for that spiritual connection.
That's actually a good point. I think if that is very real for a person, that spiritual connection that they have, then from there it should evolve the other levels of the connection in the relationship. If that's real for you, if it's just,
that's a very good point.
Yeah,
that's a very good point. Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If it's only something that you kind of, what should I say?
Toxic spirituality. Yes.
Yeah. If you really mean it, if you really believe that you're two halves of one soul, and you really believe that, and sometimes, all you see in the other, and sometimes it can be in a relationship that all you don't see now the great value in it, right? But you're committed to it because of that. You know what will happen? You'll see great value too.
Right. Wow, interesting.
That's what I truly believe. Thank you, Sasi.
Like that. Fine. Thank you.
That was very nice. Thank you. Noah.
Shalom Aleichem, Ibrani. Thanks for holding space, and thanks for everyone who's here. Be good to hear you, Sasi. Thanks for that input. Deep breath.
Please, take a deeper one.
Sure. I love Pirkei Avot, and that's what got my attention. I think it seems to be one of the most fundamental Torahs that we can build upon, and what you're talking about is so extra specially beautiful, and I appreciate your sharing. And it brought one thing to mind. My older brother, he's deeply involved in the medicine field, and so when I was pursuing mental health, he was giving me anecdotes about the things he had seen as I was coming up, and he said, there's one guy in an institution that everyone he related to was either his king and he was the servant, or the guy was the servant and he was the king. and my older brother, we're modernish, whatever it is, and he does wear a couple and a kippah. And so when this guy saw him, he immediately was like, "Oh, it's the king of the Jews, king of Israel," and he started immediately genuflecting, like think that he's the king, and etc. And it made me think of, that just like you said, Rabbi, it's a binary in our relationships. Are we serving because we are in the mood to serve, like Abraham Avinu sitting at the entrance of our tent, itching to serve, or is it that we're waiting to be served, and if we have to serve a little bit in the way in order to get served, okay, that's part of the relationship. And then I guess the last thing I'll say, the next level of it is the way it progresses in generations and over time. Antignos of Socho had two students, and those two students, Tzadok and Baitus, were responsible for a major factioning in the Jewish world and in the spiritual world, and it was a precursor to Christianity, I could say. And it's very scary when a person doesn't openly acknowledge, I'm here to serve, not because I'm getting anything from it, but because that's my job. The car is there to drive, the music is there to play, and everything else is leading up to that, and it's in service of that goal of driving, playing, running, whatever it may be. And to lose sight of that is to lose the Zen. And I think that our tzaddikim were teaching us that thousands of years ago. And when we lost it, Tzadok and Baitus, those two students, one of them said, we're only going to take the Torah completely literally. We're not going to go for that in-between space that the Rebbeim were so focused on. And that led them down their path. And then the Baitusim, we don't even know about them right now because their path was so completely different. But thanks, Rabbi, for letting me try and tie it all together.
Thank you. Thank you, Noah. Very, very nice. Beautiful. I want to conclude with a teaching from the Rebbe on what we just learned here to tie this all together. So do not be as a servant. So the lowest level is to be a slave to our animal instincts. And sometimes we get a jolt. What happens when we're a slave to our animal instincts and we get jolted? Like sometimes you overeat and what you get jolted. You see the repercussion of what happens. Sometimes we do something, we say something that is so, it's not nice to the person that you said. And we suffer the repercussion of it, right? So when we are a slave to our animal instinct, what will happen is we're going to get jolted. We're going to see the repercussion. And what that will then at least bring us to is recognizing that the repercussion brings us to a disconnect from a person, from what we said, from God, because maybe what we did, and there's a disconnect. So the lowest level is, the lower level of fear is fear of disconnection, the fear of repercussion of what happens from doing something wrong. Not the fear of punishment. The punishment is the disconnect itself. That's punishing. Because if you do love somebody, you care for somebody, and you say something, then the feeling of being disconnected from that person, you don't need any other punishment. Right? That's punishing. Feeling disconnected. But that's the lowest level. Then reward is recognizing that when you do good, there's reward. Not necessarily even motivated by it, but recognizing that you do good and it's rewarding. That's a form of love, attachment, right? The first one was about being disconnected. Second level is a lower level of love, of recognizing through an attachment, through doing good, it's very rewarding, right? Then comes a recognition, and you are, it feels good, the reward. Maybe even if you're not motivated by it, but it feels good, the reward. Comes a higher level, and that is not for the reward, meaning you recognize that what you have done for another person, for example, sometimes, in the work that I do, and I do, and we all do, of reaching out to people, teaching Torah, being involved in people's lives, and you give them something that's, well, the truth is, I've had conversations with people, and they come to me 20 years later, say, Rabbi, you said this and that to me, and it just changed directions of my life, and thank you. And so I don't remember, but sometimes you help somebody and you feel good in that you help somebody, but then when you realize the good that you did was so incomparably greater than the feeling, that the feeling is not consequential. It's not important to you that I feel good that I helped you, because what the help led to in your life was so important, such a great consequence, what it did for you in your life. That's what you see, and that's what you perceive. The fact that the good feeling, you realize the reward that I feel good about myself is like meaningless compared to that. That's another level, right? Meaningless. And then the final thing that is said over here, the awe of heaven. All right, the last thing that it says over here in this teaching is the awe of heaven. What does it mean, the awe of heaven? What does awe mean? Awe means, like I've had the privilege, I've mentioned many times, standing before the Lubavitcher Rebbe, a great holy person, that you're awed out. You feel the greatness. You feel, not that Rebbe makes you feel small, but you recognize your smallness, and you're completely silent. You're not just silent, even if you want to share something, you can't even have the words to say it properly, because you are just so small, right? Again, not small and insignificant that you are worthless. No, not that kind of smallness. But you sense the other person's greatness, that it silences you. That's true awe. We've had the moments that we've seen a breathtaking scene, and we hold our breath, right? And that is awesome. What is it when you hold your breath? You're removed from within you, that you become silenced before that greatness that you are before. This is the ultimate way of divine worship, is that there's a sense of how awesome it is, what God needs from me to do in this world. So much so that I inside of me, I'm silenced in the humility, the awesomeness of the task and the duty that has been placed upon me, that God needs me to achieve. That is powerful. Becomes a very powerful person too, because they're so driven by not their feelings of feeling good about themselves. They're so driven not by the need to have any kind of reward, but by the awesomeness of what's been placed upon them in the purpose that they were created for. And we all have that, by the way. I got to tell you, sometimes I really feel that, and I'm like, whoa. And I feel sometimes I'm too small for this, but then I know, no, I'm not too small, because it's been placed upon me. So I got to do it. I have to do it. I have to find the way. I have to find the means. I have to find but this is truly what it means, divine service. as we sense upon us, that it's so powerful and it's so empowering, because what needs to be achieved. Does that resonate? How's that? Reggie, what do you say? Tim, didn't hear from you. Irma.
Beautiful.
Zolman, thank you for joining. Noah.
Maybe would you speak to then the feeling of being awful? That there's awesome and then feeling awful.
Thank you, Noah. That's beautiful. Awful is awful. Full of awe. Is that what is that the nuance or the implication?
No, the creator can't stand in a place where a person's neck is too high, where they're too haughty. And so if I'm saying I'm full of awe, I can't be awed.
Right.
Then,
right. Yeah, you're not full of awe. You're empty when you're in awe. Right. Your breath is taken away from you. You're not full. Right. You don't have the hot air. Usually you would have the hot air, right? But when the breath is taken away from you, it's gone. Your haughtiness is gone because of the awesomeness, right? As opposed to awful. Well, that's a good one. Thank you.
maybe it takes some time. And the Rebbe was so gentle. He didn't like pop our balloons. He just like untied them
Yeah, totally. He was totally gentle in that manner of, he didn't, exactly. He took a little air out maybe. But the truth is, when I'm speaking about standing before the Rebbe, is my sense of the Rebbe. It wasn't about how the Rebbe looked at me. So it's my awareness, is minimal awareness of what I know what a Rebbe is. And therefore my sense, the Rebbe looked at me and saw my neshama, he saw my soul and connected with that. No doubt. But that was beautiful.
Would you share with us maybe stories of your interactions with the Rebbe?
Sure, briefly, because my time is up over here. But briefly, because this is the bottom line that we said over here. Let the awe of heaven be upon you. By the way, interesting. It doesn't say when it says to love, it doesn't say let the love of heaven be upon you, right? It's the love of God, but because love is something more personal. Awe is something like that creates more of a sense of separateness, right? Distance. When you're awed from the vastness of a scene that you see, that it creates a distance. Love creates a closeness. Awe creates the distance. So just to quickly, I had a very great merit that by the Fabringens, the Rebbe's talks, I sat in the third row and I was the fourth person, which was very close. And thank God that the Rebbe didn't, look straight forward. I was on an angle a bit, so he didn't look my way all the time, because if he did, it would be very hard to look back because the eyes are piercing and penetrating. So it was at least it was at an angle, and I could gaze and look at the Rebbe's, first of all, beautiful face, and secondly, holy face. And as we know that there is healing that comes by when you just look at a holy person and gaze upon them. There is literally healing that comes and takes place. By the way, the healing is even greater when he takes a look at you too, because then it penetrates deeper. but that I had also by dollars and in other times. At other times, I used to bring groups of people, students, as I was. My wife and I were McGill University and dealing with students on campus. Used to bring them a busload at a time to Crown Heights 2-3 times a year, and I guess one of the biggest things that I could say of giving nachas to the Rebbe, giving pleasure and giving pride and joy, was when I came to him in front of him when he gives out dollars and gives out blessings. Then I said, I'm here with a group from Montreal that spent, the Shabbos for Shabbos Shabbaton, and to tell that to the Rebbe, and that the Rebbe would give them for me and another dollar, and show the appreciation of bringing other people to the Rebbe. That was an awesome moment. It was hard to bring out to express it at times, because of the awesomeness of knowing who I'm standing before. It was quite something. Bringing my children, some of them are on actually right now. My son Zalman is here. I think I have others that maybe been watching out previously, and bringing them before the Rebbe was also something to see. My son Label was, I don't know if he was 9 years old, 8 years old, I remember, and he practiced many times over saying that, I don't know if it was that day or it was in 2 days, I don't remember now. It was his birthday, and he was saying Yiddish, because we taught our kids, we spoke with our kids in Yiddish, and he came by and he said, Heint, or in Sveiteg, I don't remember, is my Geburtstag, is my birthday. And he just got, and the Rebbe gave him $1, and he started to walk. And the Rebbe watched him walk, looking at him. So Rabbi Groner called him back. The Rebbe's secretary called him back. Come. Imagine, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, I don't remember exactly. Years old. Zalman, maybe you remember better the story. I remember the details now. And calls him back. And the Rebbe said in English to him, he spoke in Yiddish, but the Rebbe said in English, happy days. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting now. Happy days. Remember? Oh, okay. Solomon. Happy year. Oh, okay, thank you. He wasn't even there, but no, but the Rebbe said it in English. He spoke in Yiddish, and the Rebbe responded in English. Happy year. And as my son says, we have the video of it, so it's really beautiful. I haven't seen it recently, so I don't. Thank you, Shazalman. Lives with that, which is beautiful. We all have something we need to live with, something from the past and something in the present. The past has to be real for us in the present. There has to be things that are real from our past. Unfortunately, we have trauma in the past that we live with, and that's not what we should live with. We need to live with certain experiences that were awesome, that were beautiful, that we can always bring back. So for me, I can picture, and I do that from often, of what it means to sit by the Rebbe's Farbringen, or just to be there by davening or by dollars, and to give that moment of pride and joy that the Rebbe should have, is something of one of the important things for me in the past that I live with and try to bring into my mind and to meditate upon. I do it at least once a week, if not more. And then in the present, Mer Shamayim Aleichem, there should be the awe of heaven upon you, meaning, as we just learned over here, the highest level is that we should have the awesomeness of the divine task that God has placed upon us, that we have a unique purpose that we need to fulfill, every Jew in Torah and mitzvahs, and in their unique way, in the unique way they do that, every non-Jew through the 7 Noahide laws, and that when we sense the awesomeness of that, it'll take away our breath, and it'll lead us to really serve the way we need to serve. And with that, I'm going to call it a day. Well, not a day, but the hour. I see Candy. If I see that you wanted to share something, so I don't want to leave you out, please.
Shalom.
Hi.
Rabbi, I have a quick question. I bought the Tanya collection, which I cannot read. I cannot understand a word. I read Hebrew, but I cannot understand that. And I was told that having the book and just opening it in different pages, and there is a feeling that the books bring to you in good times and in bad times. Is that true?
Very good question. So Candy is asking like this. She has the book Tanya, and she's even knows Hebrew, and she's learning it and not getting it. So is there a value in having the book itself? So first of all, absolutely, there's a value in having holy books, having a Chumash, 5 books of Moses, having a Tehillim, having a Siddur, prayer book, having a Tanya. Absolutely, in any other Jewish holy books, there is a value in that in of its own. So yes, that, you should at least appreciate that. At the same time, it's meant to be learned and to understood and be, to be absorbed, the wisdom, in order that the divine teachings could be, and divine wisdom could be something that becomes a part of you and changes the way you perceive and see the world. I invite you, if this works for you, every day, 9:30 in the morning, we're on Clubhouse. If you follow me, and if anybody else would like to follow, you'll get a notification 9:30 every single morning. Sundays except for Shabbos, of course. Sundays is at 10:30, and we learn the Tanya. And we, I don't do it inside; I do it outside. I do have a Tanya, other Tanya classes that are on Chabad.org that are learning it inside. But I think, having someone who can teach it will be what will be ultimately helpful. That's what I would suggest. Does that help you? And by the way, if you can't come on at 9:30, it's on Facebook, Chabad.org Facebook page. And also for anybody who wants, I have Tanya Rabbi YouTube. You can get all of my classes there on Tanya, and this class also will actually be going up, and as all the other classes, so you can follow on Facebook, again on YouTube, and also on the Facebook Chabad.org. It's there for eternity, so you can get the class.
Thank you so much, Rabbi.
Thank you, Vilma.
I have a comment. I've been learning the Tanya with you. I tried reading it myself, and it was hard. I didn't get as much out of it as when I started learning with you, like over 2 years ago. I've just been listening to your talks and thinking about it and writing stuff. And I do have the Haim version of the Tanya, but now I'm thinking of getting like the 5 books. What do you think?
Definitely. Ultimately, as we learned in the previous Mishnah, that a student has to be standing on their own 2 feet. How do you stand on your own 2 feet? Meaning that you could take the book and you could learn from the book itself. Now, you might still need some aids that you need in English, fine, because you don't know Hebrew well enough. So you can, do the English, and do the English even with, the lessons in Tanya has a little, commentary there to help along. Ultimately, the goal, what we'd like to, if possible, is to be able to stand on our own 2 feet in the teachings themselves, meaning, one, spiritually, right? Spiritually, that in other words, that the teachings is now something I've implemented in my life to some degree. And secondly, that I can always go back to the teachings on my own and be inspired on my own, not with, as much, I'm not looking to no longer teach and that I should no longer to teach you. But that being said, ultimately, my goal would be that you be so proficient that you're going to be teaching others, and me too, because you're going to give me something that's going to be insightful. I said, wow, that's beautiful. That is something lovely that you're sharing that I appreciate and I've really gained from. So yeah, that's ultimately where, where we want to go with all of this. It's a journey. It may take more than 2 years. It may take 10 years. It may take whatever it takes, as long as that's the goal that we're going on, is trying to be, so to speak, not self-sufficient is not the right word, but that we can stand on our own 2 feet and we can go and look into a source material and find something. And, even that is always constantly, evolving. Does that resonate?
Yes, it's beautiful. I love books and I love source material. And just because my eyes are bad, I can't stand looking at like the phone and buying all those virtual things. And like, I have to have the books. So I'm like investing in this stuff that I care about. Like, it's wonderful. It's a beautiful journey. And I think it's a lifelong journey.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay, folks, this is amazing. We learned a longer time than we usually do on this class, but hey, it's beautiful. I enjoy it, and I'm sure you all enjoy it, and it's definitely helps to grow and grow. All right, folks, we will continue. We will get tomorrow. We also have at 12:45. It's going to be something on the Parsha, and look forward to that. Everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you, folks.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Amazing.
You.
Oh,
Yes.
you guys stayed for. Just some feedback over here, folks. How is it? We get. It's interesting. I'm not on Clubhouse now. And hold on one second. I'm going to get off here. I want to get off Facebook for a moment.